Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In the audition room of the city's prestigious conservatory, the air was thick with tension and silent judgment. The students waited their turn, some confident, others nervous, but all sharing the same dream, to impress the headmaster, Mr. Hargrove, a man known for his high standards and love of perfection. When his assistant announced the name of Marcus Johnson, a quiet and reserved black teenager, a murmur ran through the room. Marcus, who came from a working-class neighborhood, had never been considered a protégé of this elite conservatory. The looks were both curious and skeptical. "Marcus, it's your turn," the headmaster said with a cold, calculating smile. "Show us what you can do on the violin." Marcus nodded, his heart pounding, and stepped forward. He rested his violin against his shoulder, adjusted his bow, and closed his eyes for a moment, as if to absorb every vibration of the instrument. Then he began to play. The first notes, soft and hesitant, quickly transformed into a torrent of captivating melodies. Each chord seemed to tell a story, each glissando directly touched the audience's emotions. The headmaster's pursed lips gradually loosened, and even the most skeptical students were captivated. When Marcus finished his performance, a heavy silence fell over the room. Then, like a liberating breath, a standing ovation erupted. The director, stunned and unable to hide his astonishment, stammered, "I've never heard anything so moving." What no one knew yet was that this violin, passed down through generations of Marcus's family, had a rare power. It revealed not only the talent, but the soul of the one who played it. And tonight, it would change his life, and shock the whole world. Marcus Johnson walked down the conservatory hallway, his hands slightly trembling around his violin. Each step echoed the many times he'd been judged, ignored, or underestimated. He wasn't from a wealthy family, and this conservatory, known for its privileged students, represented an almost unattainable dream for him. As he walked through the doors of the audition room, all eyes immediately turned toward him. Some students whispered, "He won't last 5 minutes." Others, intrigued, couldn't take their eyes off the young musician. The headmaster, Mr. Hargrove, sat behind his desk, his piercing gaze fixed on Marcus. He was known for being stern, and many feared his decisions. "Mr. Johnson, it's your turn," he announced, almost condescendingly. Marcus took a deep breath, placed his violin on his shoulder, and let his fingers instinctively find the strings. The first chord, simple and gentle, seemed to instill an eerie silence in the room. Then the music became more complex, each note weaving a tale of struggle, hope, and passion. The students froze, unable to look away. Even Mr. Hargrove, who had seen hundreds of performances, felt his breath catch. He hadn't expected such intensity. The music seemed to tell a story that no one but Marcus could understand. When the last note died away, silence lasted a few seconds before a murmur of wonder rippled through the room. The director, impassive but visibly overwhelmed, murmured, "Impressive." That night, Marcus hadn't just played the violin, he'd opened a door to a world that, until then, had seemed forever closed to him. But he didn't yet know that this performance would provoke reactions far beyond the audition room, and that some people would do anything to try to stop him. After the audition, Marcus left the room, his heart still pounding from that unforgettable performance. He thought he could breathe a moment, but the conservatory corridors were already filled with whispers and lingering stares. Some students, jealous or suspicious, couldn't believe that this quiet boy had just outshined them all. In the headmaster's office, Mr. Hargrove sat motionless, his fingers tapping nervously on the wood of his desk. He had never been surprised like this by a musician, and yet Marcus had just shattered all his expectations. For a moment, he wondered if the young boy was hiding something beneath his raw talent. Some teachers and students began to speculate about Marcus. He had to rehearse for hours every day. "No, it's more than that, it's like he's putting his soul into it in music." But where does he come from? He's never been to any advanced class. The whispers eventually reached the ears of some influential students, who decided not to let this threat to their reputations pass. Rumors began to circulate. Marcus wasn't experienced enough, he shouldn't be here, and some even suggested requesting a re-audition to test him further. Meanwhile, Marcus, unaware of the intrigues brewing behind him, focused on his goal, to prove he could belong in this world. But one thing was clear, this conservatory, which seemed open to talent, could also turn into a cruel trap. The headmaster, for his part, was pondering how to assess this prodigy without appearing overly impressed. He knew Marcus possessed a rare talent, but he wondered if the boy was ready to face the jealousies, manipulations, and challenges this world reserved for the best. What came next would test Marcus beyond his mastery of the violin. And some would do anything to stop him from shining. The day after the audition, Marcus received an unexpected summons. The principal asked him to stay after class for a special assessment. Curious and a little apprehensive, he sat down in Mr. Hargrove's cold, imposing office. The director, sitting behind his desk, looked at him for a long time. "Marcus," he began in a measured voice, "your performance yesterday surprised the entire conservatory. But I need to make sure you're truly ready for our advanced program." Before Marcus could reply, the headmaster stood up and grabbed an antique violin from a stand. His eyes glowed with an eerie light. "This is a very special instrument," he explained. "It has been played by the finest musicians in our school, and only those with true talent can make it resonate properly." Marcus carefully picked up the violin. As soon as he placed the bow on the strings, a strange vibration ran through the room. The music that came out was different from that of his own violin, deeper, more intense, almost alive. The headmaster seemed shocked, but he tried to hide his emotion. "Very well, you passed the test. But be aware that some students will not bear to see someone like you succeed." Before Marcus could comprehend, a group of influential students entered the office under the pretext of checking something out. Their gazes were full of jealousy and defiance. One of them, Ethan, stepped forward. "Looks like you came in too fast, Marcus. You should be careful." Marcus sensed a strange tension in the room. He understood then that his talent, while impressive, would attract as much admiration as hostility. That day, he realized that the conservatory was not just a place of music, it was a battleground for power, recognition, and sometimes, revenge. As he left the office, Marcus clutched his violin. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was determined to prove that his talent came from heart and soul, not luck. The next day, Marcus entered the rehearsal room, ready to work as usual. But the atmosphere was different. Stares slid over him, some full of curiosity, others of malice. He immediately sensed that something was brewing. Ethan and two of his friends approached, smirks on their faces. "So, prodigy," Ethan said, "you already think you're the best? Let's see if your talent is really that special." Marcus remained calm. "I'm not trying to be better than anyone. I just want to play my music." But Ethan didn't listen. With a sudden gesture, he dropped the sheet music Marcus had just prepared. "Maybe you should learn some real discipline before showing yourself here." Before the situation could escalate, the violin teacher, Miss Caldwell, entered the room. She had attended Marcus's audition and knew his potential. "Ethan, enough," she shouted. "Marcus doesn't have to prove anything to anyone here. If you want a challenge, focus on your own work." Ethan withdrew, giving Marcus one last contemptuous look. But Marcus sensed this confrontation was only the beginning. Jealousy and tension would escalate, and some students were desperate to make him fail. Yet a small smile appeared on Marcus's face. These challenges didn't scare him. On the contrary, they pushed him to surpass himself. He lifted his violin and began to play, letting the music fill the room and silence all ill intentions. Every note was a message: he was here to stay, and nothing and no one would stop him. At that moment, Marcus understood that his real fight would not only be against the notes or the scores, but against doubt, jealousy, and the secrets that this conservatory hid behind its majestic walls. After a day of intense rehearsals, Marcus decided to stay a little later in the conservatory to work alone. The room was silent, lit only by the soft glow of the hanging lamps. He placed his violin on his shoulder and began to play, losing all sense of time. Suddenly, a small drawer hidden in the desk caught his eye. Curious, he opened it and discovered an old, yellowed letter and a locket containing a tiny key. The letter was signed by the conservatory's founder, dating back several decades. To whoever discovers this secret, know that the violin you hold has a rare power. It reveals not only the talent, but the soul of the one who plays it. Use it wisely. Marcus felt a surge of excitement mixed with worry. Was this the violin he'd played during the assessment with the headmaster? The locket seemed to whisper something to him, like an ancient bond between him and the instrument. The next day, during the principal's lesson, Marcus decided to ask. Mr. Hargrove, after seeing Marcus hesitate, sighed deeply and sat down. Marcus, what you hold in your hands is not just a violin. It's a legacy. Very few musicians have the privilege of feeling its power. Marcus, his eyes wide, realized that this conservatory was not just a place of training, but a guardian of an ancient and powerful musical secret. The director added, "Your talent goes beyond technique. This violin, it can reveal pure emotion, but it also attracts those who want to control or destroy that power." This revelation made Marcus realize that his music, already capable of moving people, would soon provoke jealousy, rivalries, and even danger. It was no longer just about impressing, but about protecting something precious and unique. As he left the office, Marcus clutched the locket in his hand. He knew now that his path would be fraught with challenges, and that every note he played could change his life, and the lives of others, in unexpected ways. A week later, the conservatory was holding a small concert for advanced students. Marcus, invited to perform in front of the entire school, felt both excitement and apprehension. He knew that his jealous classmates, and perhaps even some of the teachers, were watching his every move. As he was about to go on stage, Ethan and his friends decided to cause trouble. They had hidden a string from Marcus's violin, hoping to make him fail and humiliate the young prodigy in front of everyone. When the moment came, Marcus stepped into the spotlight. He immediately realized his violin sounded different, as if something was wrong. A shudder ran through the room. Ethan stifled a laugh, convinced Marcus was going to fail. But Marcus didn't panic. He closed his eyes, placed his fingers on the strings, and let the music guide his instincts. What happened surprised everyone. Despite the missing string, the melody that came out of his violin was even more captivating, almost supernatural. Each note seemed to dance in the air, captivating the audience and transforming the instrument into an extension of their soul. Students and teachers alike stood there in awe, unable to look away. Even the headmaster, usually stern and impassive, felt a deep emotion coursing through him. At the end of the performance, the room fell silent, before a spontaneous ovation erupted. Marcus, breathless but triumphant, understood that his talent was not merely technical, it was linked to an ancient force that only the violin could unleash. Ethan, humiliated and furious, stepped back, while Marcus, now aware of the extent of his musical power, realized that his life had just changed. He was no longer just a conservatory student, he had become the center of a mystery capable of wonder and discord. That evening, Marcus understood something essential: music could be a tool of beauty, but also a weapon in the hands of those who know how to listen to it and play it with their heart. The days following the concert were eerily silent for Marcus. Most of the students now regarded him with a mixture of respect and jealousy, while some secretly plotted to regain control of the conservatory in their own way. One morning, upon entering the rehearsal room, Marcus noticed that some of his sheet music was missing. His violin, carefully placed on its music stand the day before, seemed slightly out of place. His heart raced, someone had touched his things. Shortly after, he received an anonymous message, slipped under the door of the conservatory. "The violin you're holding isn't just an instrument, and some people will do anything to possess it. Be careful, Marcus." This threat didn't come from just anyone. Marcus quickly realized that the rival was an advanced student, Julian King, known for his talent but also for his all-consuming ambition. Julian, obsessed with fame, saw Marcus as a threat to his future. Later that day, Marcus ran into Julian near the library. Julian's gaze was hard, almost calculating. "You play well, Marcus," he said coldly. But you should know that some skills invite trouble. Marcus didn't answer immediately. He knew he shouldn't show his fear. My goal isn't to compete with you, Julian, he replied calmly. I just want to play my music. Julian smiled, but there was no warmth in the smile. Music, my dear Marcus, has never been just an art here. It is power. And some will not hesitate to seize it, no matter the cost. Walking home that evening, Marcus clutched his violin and pondered these words. The danger no longer came from ordinary jealousies. Someone actively wanted to get hold of the antique violin and the secret it contained. For Marcus, it was clear that his music had become more than a passion, it was now a weapon and a treasure, and he would have to learn to protect it, before someone stole it and destroyed everything he had built. One night, the conservatory was plunged into an almost unearthly silence. Marcus had decided to stay late to practice a new composition on his antique violin. The room was dimly lit by lamps, and each note resonated with an almost magical intensity. Suddenly, a noise behind him startled Marcus. Julian, taking advantage of the darkness, had tried to enter the room and steal the violin. His goal was clear, to steal the instrument and the secret it contained, and establish himself as the conservatory's greatest prodigy. Marcus turned around, his heart pounding, but instead of panicking, he let his instincts guide his reaction. He raised his bow and began to play. The music, pure and powerful, seemed to create an invisible barrier around him. Julian stepped back, disturbed by the intensity of the melody. Every note Marcus played seemed to react to his emotions, amplifying his determination and anger at the betrayal. The antique violin vibrated with an almost supernatural energy, throwing Julian against a wall with a force that only music could produce. Julian, stunned and frightened, realized that he was not dealing with a mere student. Marcus and his violin formed a duo capable of defending what was theirs. He stepped back, defeated this time, while Marcus, panting but triumphant, realized the extent of his instrument's power. After this incident, Marcus knew that Julian's threat wouldn't end there. Every note he played from now on could be used as a defense, but he also had to learn to control this strength, as it was fragile and could easily lead to greater trouble. As he left the room, his gaze determined, Marcus understood that his talent was no longer just a means of recognition, it had become a weapon and a responsibility. And from now on, every day at the conservatory would be a test of courage, talent, and survival. The days following the incident with Julian were tense. Marcus knew his rival wouldn't stand idly by and that he would have to remain vigilant at all times. However, an unexpected event would change everything. As he rehearsed in a secluded room, a young violinist named Clara entered quietly. She had been watching Marcus for some time and, unlike the other students, she didn't seem jealous or suspicious. I know what you're going through, she whispered. And I think we can help each other. Marcus, surprised but relieved to find someone he could trust, nodded. Clara explained that she herself had discovered the existence of the antique violin and that her own teacher, once close to the founder, had told her of its unique power. She understood that this violin could attract ambitious enemies like Julian. Together, they began practicing techniques and melodies to fully harness the power of the violin, while learning to control it without letting it turn against them. Each session strengthened their bond, and Marcus began to understand that music could be much more than personal expression, it could be a language of protection and strategy. One evening, while they were playing in harmony, the violin seemed to react in an even stranger way. A subtle vibration ran through the instrument and cast a soft light on an ancient fresco in the conservatory. Marcus and Clara then discovered a forgotten inscription, mentioning an ancient secret: he who masters the soul of the violin will be able to reveal the hidden truth of the school and protect its legacy for future generations. Marcus understood that the conservatory held much more than just musical instruction. It held ancient secrets about music and the power it could unleash. And he, despite his young age, was now at the center of this mystery. With Clara at his side, he felt more ready than ever to face the lurking enemies and discover the true power of the old violin, all while preparing for one final confrontation that would decide the fate of the conservatory. The conservatory was filled with unusual tension that day. The entire school had been invited to a unique musical duel, Marcus versus Julian. The students, fascinated and anxious, knew that this was not a simple talent contest, but a clash where every note could change the fate of the conservatory. Marcus entered the stage, Clara at his side for support. Julian followed, confident and arrogant, certain that his superior technique would be enough to crush the young prodigy. But he was unaware of the true power of the antique violin Marcus possessed and the strength he had developed by learning to control it. The director, Mr. Hargrove, watched silently, aware that this duel would reveal more than just a winner, it would show who was worthy of carrying on the conservatory's musical legacy. When Julian struck the first notes, they were precise, technical, and impressive. But Marcus responded with a melody that seemed alive, capable of absorbing and transforming each opposing note into a new and moving harmony. The air resonated, vibrating with an energy no one had ever heard before. Every note Marcus played told his story, his struggle, his perseverance, and the strength of his soul. Julian tried to counter, but Marcus's music unsettled him, revealing his flaws and his obsession with power rather than art. At the end of the performance, a stunned silence fell before the entire audience erupted in cheers. Marcus, panting but beaming, knew that the victory wasn't just musical, he had proven that talent and passion trump arrogance and jealousy. The director then stepped forward, visibly moved. "Marcus, you have not only mastered this rare instrument, but you have revealed the soul of the conservatory. You are worthy of this legacy." Julian, humiliated but aware of the young prodigy's strength, left the stage, leaving Marcus and Clara to celebrate their triumph. The antique violin, gleaming in the lights, seemed almost to smile, as if recognizing that its secret was finally in good hands. That day, Marcus understood that music could change lives, uplift souls, and protect precious secrets. He was no longer simply a student, he was the guardian of an ancient heritage, capable of moving and defending through the sheer power of his art. And as he left the stage, violin on his shoulder, Marcus knew that his adventure was only just beginning.